Hello everybody, Mrs. Kit back again with another fairy tale. So far we have heard Sleeping Beauty and Rumpelstiltskin from the Brothers Grimm fairy tales. And today we are going to read Rapunzel, which I think a lot of us have heard this story before. So, our objectives for today. We will demonstrate familiarity with the fairy tale Rapunzel. We will identify the fairy tale elements of Rapunzel. We will identify fairy tales as a type of fiction. And we will compare and contrast different adaptations of fairy tales. So, like we said in our first lesson, that the Brothers Grimm were from Germany. They wrote all these fairy tales, and over the years, over 200 years, there have been different adaptations, different versions of these fairy tales. Now, Rapunzel is another one that has been made into a Disney movie, so I think that's most likely the version that a lot of us are familiar with. So we will compare and contrast how this version of Rapunzel is similar or different to the one that we have already heard. Right. Let's see. Here is our first picture. There once lived a man and his wife who more than anything in the world wished to have a baby. Finally, one day they learned that their wish had come true. Now, at the top of their house, in the very back, there was a little window. And from this window, you could see a garden full of beautiful flowers and fresh vegetables. But around the garden was a high wall, and no one dared to enter the garden because it belonged to a mean witch. One day, the wife stood at the window and looked down on the witch's garden. There she saw fine-looking leaves of Rapunzel, which is a kind of lettuce, and it looked so fresh and green that she felt she simply must have some. Day after day, she longed for it. She wanted it very badly. The more she wanted it, the more she became pale and sad when she could not have some. Her husband saw her looking so sad and became worried. "Dear wife, what's the matter?" he asked. "Oh," she answered, "I feel that I must eat some of that Rapunzel from the garden behind our house." Her husband loved her very much, and he thought, "I must get my wife what she desires. I will get some of that Rapunzel, no matter what." What do you think he's going to do? Remember that Rapunzel belongs to a mean witch. Oh, he looks pretty sneaky. That night he climbed over the wall into the witch's garden. He quickly filled a sack with Rapunzel and brought it back to his wife. At once she ate it with delight. She had a lot of joy, great pleasure. But she liked it so much and it tasted so good that the next day she longed for it twice as much as she had before. So that night the husband climbed the wall and again he picked more Rapunzel. He turned around to go back and he saw before him the angry eyes of the witch. Uh-oh. "How dare you climb into my garden, you thief?" she hissed. "How dare you steal my Rapunzel? You will pay dearly for this." "Oh, please," said the terrified man, "be merciful," which means he's asking for forgiveness. "I only did this because I had to. My wife, you see, is having a baby, and she was looking out the window and saw your Rapunzel, and she needed some more than anything else in the world." "Well then," the witch said, "you may have as much Rapunzel as you want, on one condition. When your wife has the child, you must give it to me. I will take care of the child like it's my very own." The man was so flustered that he said, "Yes," and then he tried not to think about it anymore. But later, The very moment when his wife gave birth to the lovely baby girl, the witch appeared and reminded him of his promise. She brought the child to live with her. Think that was worth it for some lettuce? I don't know. The witch named the baby Rapunzel, and she grew up to be a beautiful girl. When Rapunzel was 12 years old, the witch took her deep into the forest. There she locked her in a tower with no steps and no door, only a small window near the top. Whenever the witch wanted to be let into the tower, she would cry from the ground below, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Let down your hair for what? Rapunzel had beautiful long hair that shone like gold. When she heard the voice of the witch, she would open the window and let her hair fall down, 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 down to the ground far below. Then the witch would hold on to the hair and climb up to the tower window. Ouch! Someone climbing up your hair? That sounds terrible. A few years passed like this when one day the king's son was riding through the forest, and he came upon the tower. As he came near, he heard a voice singing so sweetly that he stood still and listened. It was Rapunzel in her loneliness trying to pass away the time with sweet songs. The prince wanted to go inside to see her, so he looked for a door in the tower, but there was none. He rode home, but the song had entered into his heart, and every day he went to the forest and listened to it. So if the song had entered his heart, that means he fell in love with Rapunzel. Once, as he was standing nearby behind some trees, who should come up to the tower but the witch? The prince watched amazed as the witch called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." When he saw how Rapunzel let her long hair down and how the witch climbed up it and went into the tower, he thought, "So that's the ladder. Well then, I too will climb it." The next day, as dusk fell, he came to the tower and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And she let down her hair, and the prince climbed up. So he went at dusk when it started to get dark out. Rapunzel was greatly frightened when she saw the prince, for she had never seen a man before. But he spoke kindly to her and told her how her singing had entered his heart and how he felt he could have no peace until he had seen her. Then Rapunzel forgot her fear, and when he asked her to be his wife, she put her hand in his hand and said, "I would gladly go with you, but I have no way to get out. Do this for me. The next time you come, bring a bundle of silk. Then bring some more each time you come, and I will make a ladder of it. When it's finished, I will use it to climb down from this tower, and you will carry me away from here on your horse." They agreed that he would come to her every evening, since the witch only came in the daytime. So that makes sense, right? People can climb up and down her hair to get in and out of there, but what's she going to climb on to get out of there? She can't climb on her own hair. So he's going to keep bringing her silk every night when the witch isn't there, so she can turn that into a ladder so she can make her own way to get out of there. So things went on this way until one day Rapunzel, without thinking, said to the witch, "Why do you climb up so slowly, while it takes the king's son only a moment?" Eek. "Oh, you wicked child," screamed the witch. "I thought I had you hidden here from all the world, but you have betrayed me." And in a rage, the witch grabbed a pair of sharp scissors and cut off poor Rapunzel's hair. Then the witch took Rapunzel from the tower and brought her to live deep in the forest. How did they both get down if she cut Rapunzel's hair? Because she's a witch. She got him out of there. Later that day, when evening fell, the prince came and called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The witch lowered the cut-off hair and the prince climbed up. But instead of seeing his dear Rapunzel at the top, he saw the gleaming eyes of the witch. "Aha!" she cried and laughed at him. "You came for your darling, but the sweet bird is no longer in its nest and sings no more. You will see her no more." Filled with horror and sadness, the prince fell from the tower. The fall did not hurt him badly, but the thorns on which he fell cut his eyes and blinded him. Oh no. Here's the prince. He's blind. So blind and alone, he wandered in the forest for several years, eating only roots and berries and weeping over the loss of his dear Rapunzel. At last he came to a place in the forest where Rapunzel herself was wandering. He heard a sweet voice that he thought he had heard somewhere before. When he went towards the sound, Rapunzel saw him, wrapped her arms around his neck, and wept. When Rapunzel's tears touched the prince's eyes, he could see again. They were both so happy and amazed because they thought they would never see each other again. And so the prince took Rapunzel to his kingdom to be his bride, where she was welcomed with great joy. They were soon married, and they lived happily ever after. The end. All right, let's go over some questions from our story Rapunzel today, our fairy tale. If you're watching this with someone, you can discuss your responses with them. If you're watching this on your own, then you can discuss them with me. All right, number 1. In the beginning of the fairy tale, what does the woman long for from the witch's garden? Remember, she was longing for the lettuce called Rapunzel from the witch's garden. What happened to her before she got some? She was pale and sad. She was longing for that Rapunzel lettuce. Hard. What did her husband do? Since she said she was longing for the Rapunzel from the witch's garden, what did her husband do for her? He went over to the witch's garden and he stole some Rapunzel for her. Do you think there was any other way he could have solved the problem? Do you think there's any other way to make his wife happy than to steal Rapunzel from the witch's garden? I mean, he could have grown his own Rapunzel. She would have had to been patient till it grew. He could have tried to give her some other type of vegetable that might have been tasty that would have satisfied her enough to not want to steal from the witch. Could have avoided this whole issue with the witch taking the baby, but that's not what happened. So when the witch catches the husband in the garden, he asks her to be merciful. What does the witch then say the husband must do if he wants Rapunzel from the garden? Remember that Rapunzel is the lettuce. What does the husband have to do in order to be able to get as much Rapunzel lettuce from the witch's garden that he wants? He has to give his child to the witch when the baby's born in exchange for lettuce. I don't know. What does the witch name the baby? Names the baby Rapunzel, right? Why do you think she names her Rapunzel? The witch named the baby Rapunzel after the lettuce that the baby's dad stole from her garden for the mother. What happens when Rapunzel is 12 years old? The witch locks her in a tower that has no doors and only one window near the top. How does the witch visit Rapunzel now? She climbs Rapunzel's hair. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let your hair down. How does the prince discover that Rapunzel exists? One day, when he is riding through the forest, the prince hears Rapunzel's voice singing sweetly. What happens when the witch finds out that the prince has been visiting Rapunzel? The witch becomes angry, cuts off Rapunzel's hair, and takes her from the tower to live alone in the forest. Then she tricks the prince into climbing Rapunzel's hair that she already cut off, and he falls from the tower. Remember, he landed on the thorns and he went blind. Does the fairy tale have a happy ending? Yes, the prince finds Rapunzel and her tears allow him to see again. They get married and they live happily ever after. What happens in this fairy tale that is fantasy? The witch being able to climb Rapunzel's hair, Rapunzel's tears allowing the prince to see again, the witch. That is all fantasy. An important vocabulary word we heard in today's lesson was the word delight. In the read aloud you heard, he quickly picked a handful of Rapunzel and brought it back to his wife. At once she ate it with delight. Delight means great pleasure or joy. I look forward to the warm weather and flowers of spring with delight each year. That is very true. Tell me about some times that fairy tale characters in the tales we've read so far feel delight. So remember, so far we have read Sleeping Beauty, Rumpelstiltskin, and now Rapunzel. So tell me about some times that fairy tale characters in the tales we've read so far feel delight. Well, in the first story, the first fairy tale we read, Sleeping Beauty feels delight when the prince kisses her and she wakes up from her 100 years of sleep. And everyone in the kingdom feels delight as they're being woken up after 100 years of sleeping. In Rumpelstiltskin, the queen feels delight when she guesses his name and he stomps himself into the ground and he's donezo. He's gone. So she feels delight that she doesn't have to worry about giving away her baby. And in Rapunzel that we just read, the prince and princess feel delight when Rapunzel's so happy that she sees the prince in the woods and her tears hit his eyes and then he can see again. He feels delight because he can see again. They feel delight because they found each other again and now they get to go live happily ever after in a palace. All right, guys, that is it for today. Tomorrow, we are going to read the first part of The Frog Prince. This is a longer story, so it's going to take us 2 days to read all of it. So tomorrow we will read The Frog Prince Part 1. I can't wait for that. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.